determine the forest coverage area that we have lost in the past years. Recently, during the World Forestry Congress, which is taking place in the South Korea, a very important report was being released, and the title of the report was basically the State of the World's Forest Report 2022. So guys, in this session we are going to discuss all the key important findings from this particular report, which you are required to remember from the exam point of view. So whenever we talk about any report, you must know that what exactly the title of it was. Basically it was the State of the World's Forest Report, which basically presents three pathways to tackle the environmental crisis and other issues. So guys, when we talk about the very first dimension that we are required to cover in any kind of report, that is basically the releasing body. So when we talk about the releasing body for this report, it is basically being released by the Food and Agriculture Organization, and this report, as we have already discussed, it presents three pathways for achieving the green recovery and the tackling environmental crisis. So what exactly these three pathways are, we are going to discuss them in the upcoming slides. But before, let's find out that what are the key important findings from the exam point of view that you are required to remember from this particular report. But before discussing the key findings, you must know that what exactly is the forest coverage across the geographical area of the earth, and this is basically 31%, that is 4.06 billion hectares of the Earth's geographical area is being covered by forests. And there is one more important point that you are required to remember, and that is from this particular area, around 700 million hectares of the forest, that is 18% of the total forest area, is basically in the legally established protected areas. Now when we talk about the key findings of this report, here you can see that as per this particular report, this basically tells us the forest area that we have lost in the past 3 decades. And as per this report, between 1990 to 2020, Earth has basically lost 420 million hectares, which is approximately 10.3% of its total area. And guess what exactly was the reason behind that? The reason behind that was deforestation. Okay, so this is basically a very important data that you are required to from the exam point of view. And guys, I am marking the star here. And there is one more point, that around 10 million hectares of forests were lost every year between 2015 and 2020. That is one more important point that you are required to remember. So guys, when we talk about this particular report, this report also warns us that if no additional action is being taken to preserve these forests, to resolve this particular issue, what is going to happen? Around 289 million hectares of the forest would be deforested, and the period behind that is it will be deforested between 2016 and 2050. So guys, this is one thing that you are required to remember from the exam point of view. Now moving towards the other important part. See, whenever we talk about losing the forest, we all know that forests are really very important natural resources for us. And guys, that's why when these resources will be absent from the earth, what is going to be? See, it is going to impact the human existence, and that's why, as per the finding of this particular report, you can see that a lot of diseases, that is 15% of the 250 emerging infectious diseases, have been linked to the forest. And guys, apart from that, you will be surprised to know that 30% of the new diseases which have been reported since year 1960, they were attributed to the deforestation. So guys, here you can see that deforestation is particularly in the tropics, which has been associated with an increase in the infectious diseases such as dengue, fever and malaria. And guys, we all know that whenever a person got disease, there is some economic expenditure to that, and that's why there are times that people also fell into the extreme poverty. And that's why we have find out that as per this particular report, during the COVID-19 pandemic, approximately 124 million more people fell into the extreme poverty after COVID-19. And as a result, see what exactly was the result of that? There is evidence of increased wood-based fuel use in some countries during the pandemic. And this report also says that around 1 billion people are going to use this polluting fuels since till year 2025 in sub-Saharan Africa. And that is one more point that you are required to remember. So from here we can directly conclude that what exactly are the important things that we are required to remember. So guys, apart from that, we all know that the population across the world is rising day by day, and this enhanced population will also lead to the enhanced more and more requirement of the natural resources for the consumption of these people. That means adding extra pressure on our Mother Earth. And guys, that's why this particular report tells us that world population is projected to be 9.7 billion people by 2050. One such number that you are required to remember from the exam point of view. And guys, when we have such a rising population across the world, what will be the result? We need more and more food, and that's why the demand of the food of these people will rise from by 35 to 56% by year 2050. So guys, that's why, and now here you can see that the world population is projected to reach 9.7 billion people by 2050, and this is what going to do, it is going to basically increase in the competition for land, and that's why what will happen, there will be a change in the land use pattern, there will be more deforestation, and once again it will lead to reduction in the forest coverage. Apart from that guys, when we talk about the annual global consumption of the natural resources, so this was basically 92 billion in 2017, but this particular report states that it will enhance and it will get more than double to 190 billion tons in year 2060, adding a lot of pressure to the Mother Earth. And guys, that's why apart from that, here you can see that there is one more important point that you are required to remember, that is the annual biomass extraction. And guys, it was basically expected to reach 44 billion tons, and guys, you will be surprised to know that this value was only 24 billion in 2017, and this will reach to 44 billion by year 2060. And here you can see that what exactly is the key threat to this forest biodiversity. This is basically the deforestation and the forest degradation, which is basically the major threat to the forest biodiversity as per this particular report. Apart from that, this particular report also tells us that what is going to be the cost of action of preserving the forest, the action that we are going to take in order to preserve this forest. Apart from that, what is going to be the impact of this particular actions on the environment. So when we talk about the cost, here you can see that the cost of the global strategies in order to prevent the pandemics. So guys, this is basically going to be $22 billion to $31 billion. Apart from that, when we talk about the impact of the restoration of degraded land, so it is going to basically take out 0.9 to 1.5 global annual tons of the carbon dioxide emission per year out of the atmosphere between 2020 and 2050. One such point that you are really required to remember. Now let's move on to the very important aspect of this report, that is the three pathways that we have already told you during the start of the session. And these pathways are basically halting the deforestation and maintaining forests, restoring degraded lands and expanding agroforestry, sustainably using forests and building green value chains. So guys, these are basically three interrelated pathways which this particular report presents to achieve green recovery and to tackle the environmental crisis. So guys, basically this was all about the today's report that we have discussed in our today's session, and this is what you are required to remember from the exam point of view. So now let's move on to the practice question from this particular part. So when we talk about the practice question, you are required to identify the correct statement in relation with the state of the world's forest 2022 report. So here 5 statements have been mentioned here. You are just required to identify the correct statement and answer the question. So as per our discussion guys, here all the statements which are being mentioned are absolutely correct, and the right answer to the question is option E, that is all of the above. So now, apart from that guys, when we talk about the homework question from the previous session, so the question was basically on the theme of the World Press Freedom Day 2022, and the right answer to the question was journalism under digital siege, and all the people have answered the question correctly to this particular session. And guys, these are the star performers from our previous session who have also answered the homework question correctly from the previous session. Now if you also want your name to be mentioned here in the upcoming session as a star performer, what you are required to do, you are just required to answer this homework question in this particular session. That is, you are just required to tell me that recently Union Minister of Information and Broadcasting has basically announced the world's largest film restoration project under the National Film Heritage Mission. So what you are required to tell me, you are required to tell me the budget for this particular project. What exactly it is option A 163 crore, 263, 363, 463 or 500 crores. Please tell me the right answer in the chat box and I will be giving your names as a star performer in my upcoming session. So guys, if you have still not subscribed to our YouTube channel, kindly subscribe it and press the bell icon to receive all the latest updates of the courses and videos offered by us. And you can also join our Telegram channel to get the access to the PDF of the sessions. To join the Telegram channel, kindly click on the link given in the description below. So guys, this was all from the today's session. I really believe that today's session was useful and fruitful to all of you. If you are having any queries, you can drop us a mail at hello@edutab.co.in and you can also call us at 814-620-7241. So thank you for joining us. Wish you all happy learning.